Hello everybody, this is the video going over our 1.1 to 1.3 quiz review. Hopefully this video helps you get ready for your upcoming quiz. Alright, let's get started. So let's first start by reading the directions. It says solve each equation, check your answer to the problem specified. So when it says problem specified, that means you're only going to have to check your answers for a couple of them. So let me show you which ones we have to check. So if you'll notice with number 4, it says check your solution for number 3. Number 8 says check your solution for number 7. So we're not going to be checking our solutions for every single problem, just the ones that actually have it specified. So let's go ahead and get started. So for number 1, I have 18 minus n equals 10. Now if there is no number in front of your variable, it's like having a 1 there. So I'm going to go ahead and put the 1 there so I can see it. From there, I want to get rid of everything around my variable, so I'm going to start by moving the 18. Now, when I am trying to get rid of the 18, I first need to ask myself, is that 18 positive or negative? If I look at my problem, my 18 is positive, so in order to get rid of it, I want to subtract, because I always want to do the opposite. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 18 from both sides. The 18s cancel, as they should. That leaves me with negative 1n equals 10 minus 18 is negative 8. Now my n is still being multiplied by negative 1, so to undo multiplication I want to divide. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by negative 1, and that gives me n equals 8. Number 2, I have variables on both sides. When you have variables on both sides, you need to pick one of them to start with. It really does not matter which variable you choose to start with. I'm going to go ahead and start with that minus w on the left-hand side. And once again, if there is no number in front of your variable, it's like having a 1 there. So since I have minus w, in order to move it to the other side so I can combine my variables together, I need to do the opposite. So this becomes plus 1w plus 1w. Keep in mind, your goal when you have variables on both sides is to get variables on one side and your number on the other. So that is what we are trying to do. So my w's are going to cancel on the left. That leaves me with 5 equals 2w plus 1w is going to give me 3w's minus 1. From here, I want to get rid of my minus 1, so I'm going to add 1 to both sides. That gives me 6 equals 3w. Now, if you'll notice, you have your variable on one side, number on the other, which is exactly what our goal was when we have variables on both sides. So now, at this point, my 3 is being multiplied by my w, so I want to undo multiplication, so I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 3, and that gives me w equals 2. Okay. Number 3. So number 3, once again, I do still have variables on both sides, so I'm going to pick one to move. Now, please be very, very careful with this one, because when you pick a variable to move, you should never move the one that is already by itself. So right here, if you'll notice my negative 2s, it does not have anything else added or subtracted from it, so I'm actually going to leave that one alone. So instead, I am going to pick my 3s, and I'm going to move it to my other side so I can get my variables on one side, number on the other. So since this is a positive 3s, I'm going to subtract 3s from both sides. Negative 2s minus 3s is negative 5s equals negative 10. Now from here, I am multiplying my negative 5 and my s, so to undo that, I need to divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 5, and you get s equals 2. Now let me show you what happens and some suggestions if you choose to move that minus 2s instead. Because technically you can, but I don't want you to make a certain mistake. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the problem over here. So negative 2s equals 3s minus 10. Now let's say I really want to move the negative 2s. Let's go ahead and do it. So I'm going to add 2s to both sides. Here is where people make mistakes. Over here, my negative 2s plus 2s ends up canceling. When that is the case, you have to put a 0 on that side of the equal sign. You can never have an empty side of the equal sign. And then over here, I have 5s minus 10. I can go ahead and keep solving. I'm going to add 10 to both sides. That gives me 10 equals 5s, and I'm going to divide. So if you'll notice, you still end up with the same answer in the end, so it really does not matter which route you choose to take. Just make sure if you're going to do the second version that you write the 0. Otherwise, your signs might get a little messed up because you might make a mistake. Okay, number 4 says to check our solution. So anytime we are checking our solutions, we are always plugging in what we got for s into the original equation. So my original equation was negative 2s equals 3s minus 10. And wherever I see an s, there's one right here and one right here, I am going to replace it with what I think is my answer, which is 2. So I have negative 2 times 2, because I got 2 for s for number 3. And then on this side, I have 3 times 2 minus 10. Now I am going to work from one side at a time to simplify. So negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Over here, I have 6 minus 10, which is also negative 4. Now what you're doing when you're checking your solution is you are checking that you end up with a true statement. So if you look at this, I ended up with negative 4 equals negative 4, which is true. So that answer of s equals 2 is correct. Number 5. So number 5, same deal. I have variables on both sides, so I'm going to pick one to move. I'm going to go ahead and move the 5z. And again, since I am going to the other side of my equal sign, I need to do the opposite, which is why I'm subtracting 5z. So 8z minus 5z is 3z plus 12 equals negative 21. I am going to subtract 12 from both sides. That gives me 3z equals negative 33. And I'm going to divide by 3. By the way, if you ever struggle with your positives or your negatives, you're more than welcome to use a calculator when you're combining your terms. Okay, number 6. So number 6, I have this grouping over here. I have my set of parentheses. So anytime you have a set of parentheses, what you want to do is you want to work through that distributive property. Now what you are distributing into the parentheses is not just a 6. You're actually going to distribute a negative 6. So please make sure if you have a minus in front of your parentheses, you are distributing that as well. So let me rewrite. I have 7b. Negative 6 times 11 is negative 66. Negative 6 times negative 2b is going to become positive 12b equals 10. Now I need to combine like terms. So I have 7b plus 12b. That gives me 19b minus 66 equals 10. Continuing to solve, I'm going to add 66 to both sides. That gives me 19b equals 76. Divide both sides by 19. And again, feel free to use a calculator if you want to. And b equals 4. Okay, number 7. So number 7, I have x plus 4 divided by 5 equals 3. I just rewrote the problem because I wanted more space. So I am dividing by 5, so to undo that, I need to multiply both sides by 5 to get rid of that fraction. And what happens to the 5s on my left over here? They end up canceling because you were both multiplying by 5 and dividing by 5. Those two undo each other. So I have x plus 4 equals 15. I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides to continue to solve for x, and I get x equals 11. Now, number 8 tells me to check my solution for number 7, so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the problem. It was x plus 4 divided by 5 equals 3. And wherever I see my x, I'm going to replace it with what I think is the solution, which in this case is 11. So I have 11 plus 4 divided by 5 equals 3. Now I'm going to go ahead and simplify my left-hand side to see if it is going to give me a true statement in the end. So let's go ahead and continue to reduce. 11 plus 4 is 15. 15 divided by 5 is 3. And then I get 3 equals 3, which is a true statement. So that means my solution of x equals 11 is correct. Okay, number 9. Let's go ahead and combine like terms. So I have 2x minus 3x. So 2x minus 3x is going to give me negative 1x. Plus 4 equals 5 minus x. Keep in mind, if there is no number in front of my x, it's like having a 1 there. So I'm going to go ahead and put that there. Now I'm going to add 1x to both sides because once again I am trying to get my variables on one side, number on the other. And let's see what happens. So 1x, negative 1x plus x is going to cancel. That gives me 0. So I have 0 plus 4 over here. Equals negative 1x plus 1x is 0 again. So 5 plus 0 over here, which gives me 4 equals 5. Now, does 4 equal 5? Of course it doesn't equal 5. That is something that is false. So anytime you end up with a false statement after all of your variables cancel out, that is going to result in a no solution scenario. So this was one of your special cases when you were solving with variables on both sides. So let me refresh a little bit on that. So some notes, if you get something that is false in the end, so for example, we had 4 equals 5, which of course we know is not true, that is a no solution scenario, just like we had. Now, let's say we got something that was true. So when all of my variables cancel out, let's say I ended up with 10 equals 10. Well, 10 equals 10, and 10 will always equal 10. So that is something that is true. So if it is true, what you have are infinitely many solutions. So really, you could have any value for x, and it would end up working for that equation. So there are your two scenarios for your special cases. Moving on, number 10, again, we have these groups of parentheses. So let's go ahead and start by distributing within each group of parentheses. So I have 2 times x is 2x, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times x is 2x, 2 times 4 is 8, equals 24. Now let's go ahead and combine like terms. So I have 2x plus 2x, that gives me 4x, plus 6 plus 8 is 14, equals 24. Now let's subtract 14 from both sides. That gives me 4x equals 10. Divide both sides by 4. And I have 10/4, which you can write your answer one of 2 ways. If you are going to use a fraction, please reduce it. So 10/4 reduces to 5/2. And if you wanted to plug in 5/2 into the calculator, so you did 10 divided by 4 into the calculator, that would give you 2.5. So either of those answers would be acceptable for this problem. All right. Number 11. I'm going to rewrite the problem once again because I want some space. So I'm going to start by adding 5 to both sides. That gives me x divided by 3 equals 7. And over here, since I am dividing by 3, to undo that, I need to multiply both sides by 3. Those 3's are going to cancel, so that gives me x equals 21. Number 12 tells me to check my solution. So I'm going to rewrite my problem. So that's x over 3 minus 5 equals 2. And of course, where I see my x, I'm going to replace it with what I think is the answer, which I believe is 21. And I want to see if that's going to equal 2. So let's simplify the left-hand side. 21 divided by 3 is 7. 7 minus 5 is indeed 2. So again, we got a true statement, which means our solution of 21 was correct. Okay, number 13. Once again, we have this number in front of our parentheses, but it does have a minus, so please, please, please make sure you distribute the minus with it. So I have 6x, negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Negative 3 times 2x is negative 6x. Now, let's go ahead and combine like terms. I have 6x minus 6x. 6x minus 6x is 0. It cancels out, so it leaves me with negative 6 equals negative 6. Well, does negative 6 equal negative 6? Of course it does. So that is a true statement, which means, because we talked about this a little bit earlier, we have infinitely many solutions. So this was your other special case when your variables cancel out. All right, last problem. So our last problem is using our properties to be able to justify the solving process of the equation. So what you are going to do is you are going to look at step by step what's happening here and giving me a reason as to why they are able to go from one step to the other. So let's look at our first step. So our first step right here, I'm going to go ahead and label it number 1. I have 7 plus 2 times 5 minus 2x equals negative 26. So what I want to do is I want to see what this person did to get from step 1 to step 2. So what did they do? Well, they distributed the 2 into the parentheses. So I'm going to look at my word bank, see if there's anything that says distributive, and there it is. So that means my reason, my justification, over here is going to be the distributive property. So whatever it is this particular person did to get from one step to the other, that is what you are going to write for your reason. Okay, now let's look at what this person did to get from 2 to 3. So let's examine. They end up with a 3x. I bet you they got that 3x by combining those two terms. So let's look at my word bank. Let me cross off distributive property since we used it. Although you could use it again in theory, but not with this particular problem. So combining like terms right here. Let's go ahead and put that in the box. Okay. Now let's see what happens from step 3 to step 4. Well, it looks like they got rid of the 10, but how did they get rid of the 10? I bet you they subtracted 10 from both sides. So now if I look at my word bank, subtraction property of equality is what I'm going to use next. Subtraction property, of equality. All right. Last but not least, let's see what happened to get from step 4 to step 5. So they started off with 3x equals negative 36, and then they ended up with x equals negative 12. They probably got that by dividing by 3. So that is going to be the division property of equality. if you want to abbreviate some of these phrases, you're more than welcome to do so. So for example, for division property of equality, you can write the symbol for division, division property of equality. So that works as well. All right, that goes over all of your problems on your quiz review. Hope this video helps you be successful in your quiz. You're more than welcome to rewind it, rewatch it, whatever it is that you need to do to be successful on this quiz. Always remember, you gotta practice, practice, practice.